What's up guys, it's Josh from KeepItTechie, and today I want to do a quick video showing you guys Linux ownership and permissions. Okay, so as I stated, I wanted to talk about Linux file permissions and ownership. And just so you get a clear understanding of the way it works, Linux was basically designed to support, a lot of users. So with that in mind, it needs to keep a track of who is allowed to access different files and folders and all that stuff. So permissions are real important. And there are three major types of file permissions. There are the user permissions, the group permissions, and then the other permissions. And when a file is created, each one of those permissions are set for that file. Well, in order to manipulate those permissions on that specific file, you have to use a command called chown, which I will demonstrate later on in the video. And also the other command that ties with this command is chmod, which handles the specific permissions for a file. And chown manages the ownership of the file. So that distinguishes the two commands for you. So let me go ahead and pull up a VM so I can give you guys a demonstration on how each one of these commands work in Linux. So let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, I have the terminal up, and the first thing I want to do is show you guys the man pages for each one of these commands. And so let's type in man chown. That'll be the first one we look at. So we can go in here, and here's the name and what it actually does. So chown, change file owner and group. And so here's the synopsis, chown, then the option, owner, group, and then the actual file. And they do have a few options down here. Let me read the description first though. It says, this manual page documents the GNU version of chown. Chown changes the user and or group ownership of each given file. If only an owner is given, that user is made the owner of each given file, and the file group is not changed. If the owner is followed by a colon and a group name with no space between them, the group ownership of the file is changed as well. And just scroll down a little bit, there are some options. So change, -C is changes. It like verbose, but reports only when a change is made. So -C is for that. Verbose, it outputs information while it's doing it. Now, the main option I want to show you guys is the recursive command, which is -R. And when you use that command, this actually handles directories or the whole directory tree. So let's say you do chown on a top level folder with a bunch of files and folders underneath it. If you use the -R, this will write those changes to the ownership to each and every file within that directory, as well as the directory itself. So let's go down and quit that man page, and I want to go down and open up the other one, which is man chmod, and press enter. So it says chmod change file mode bits, and here's the synopsis. So it's chmod, chmod options, then the mode, and then the file. And what's that specifying is the permissions. So let's just read a little bit of the description. This manual page documents the GNU version of chmod. Chmod changes the file mode bits of each given file according to mode, which can be either a symbolic representation of the changes to make, or the octal number representation representing the bit pattern for the new mode bits. And just to explain what it's talking about, you can actually change the permissions based on a number. And I'll break this down later when I show you guys the command. And just to go down to the options, there are a bunch of options in there, just like chown. But the main one I want to talk about is the -R, which is the one I typically use. And that's recursive. It goes down, the directory tree. And then there's a few others. So if you wanna understand all the options, then you can go into the man page and see what they actually do, and then run a command just testing it. So let's get started on doing a demonstration on both of these commands. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is actually cd to a directory I created before this video. and it's just test. So this is within my home directory, and let me create a new file. So let's do touch test.txt. So that's a new text document, and if we ls this directory, we can see that file has been created. Now, in order to look at the ownership and permissions of that file, then we have to run some more options on the ls command. If you need any help with the ls command, I did a video on the ls command a while back, so you can check that out, and that'll give you a brief overview of how to actually use the ls command. But I'm gonna show you right here as well. And the options we want to use is ls and then -la. And this is one that I typically use all the time. The L basically stands for long list. It basically lists out all the information of the actual files within the directory that you're listing out. And then A is to actually include all the files. And A is actually to include hidden files as well when you run the command. So I know I don't have any hidden files in here, but I'm going to just show you anyway using A. But that's how you actually look at all files within a directory. So as you can see, this is the file directory, the test file directory. And I just want to show you guys the actual new file that we created. So it's test.txt. That's the actual file name. And let's start from the left and work our way to the right so you guys can fully understand it. Okay, so the first column that's listed out is the actual permissions. And just to break this down for you, the first character will tell you what type of file it is on the system. And it can either be a directory or a file. And the files will always show up with a dash, and directories will always show up with the D on it. And then it goes into the permissions, and it's always 3 spots for each of the permissions. And I want to break each one of them out for you. So the first one is actually the owner of the file. The second 3 characters are the actual group for the file. And the third 3 characters is for everyone. And don't you remember I was explaining that in the beginning of the video? There's 3 types of permissions: user, group, and other. So that breaks out each one of those permissions for you. And the next section actually breaks out the owner and the group. And just to explain it, Josh is the owner, as well as there's a group that's created when you create a user on a Linux system. It creates a group for that user as that user's name. So that's why it's listed twice. So this is the owner, Josh, and this is the group. And these two can be different. You can have a different group. So let's say you have an administrators group that you want to have access to everything. You can specify that group that has the group permissions on the actual file or directory. And then the owner will always be the owner. And then this area right here, the next column is actually the size, and then the date it was created, as well as the file name. So that breaks out all those columns for you so you can understand how the ls command works. Okay, so let me go down and show you guys how to actually change the ownership by using the chown command. So chown, and let's say we want to change this file's ownership to root. And so we could type in root and then colon. You have to put a colon and then root again, and then the actual file name, which is test. So we working with this directory. We want to use that file, and we want to change the ownership to root. So if we press enter on that, it's going to fail. And the reason it's going to fail because we can't change something to root without using our sudo privileges. And I forgot about that, so bear with me. But we have to type sudo for this command because I'm changing it to root. And I was just trying to think of a simple example on how to show you guys how to actually use it, but we have to use sudo to change it to root. So let's press enter right there. It's going to ask us for our password, and this is going to change the ownership. So if we run ls -la again, it'll list out that file. And as you can see, it didn't touch the permissions, because if we look up here, it still has the same permissions, but the owner and the group actually changed for that file. So it's now owned by root, the root user, and then owned by the group root. So that's basically how you use the chown command. Now, just to show you, give you another example, but we'll go sudo chown, and let's change the owner back to Josh, and then let's just change the owner back to Josh. If you put just the username there, it will only change the user permission. So sudo chown Josh, and then let's go test.txt. And if we ls that directory again, you'll see that it changed the user back to Josh, and the group is still owned by root. So pretty cool, right? So let me go down and fix that right fast by changing the group back. So let's just up arrow on it, and let's put the colon there and type Josh and press enter, and we should be good to go on that one. -la, press enter. Cool, so it's turned back to what it is. Now let's clear this out. Okay, so let's ls this directory again. And the only reason I'm lsing it again because I actually dropped a folder in there, because I want to show you guys the recursive option that you could add to chown. So if we press ls -la, you'll see that there is a folder in there. And this is, I just wanted to show you guys, this is the difference. It shows, it puts a D in front of it. I know you could have seen up here, but these are some system, files. These are not actually files. Well, they're files, but they don't actually do anything. So I wanted to show you an actual folder so you can see the difference between a file and a folder. The folder has D in front of it, and it has the dash in front of all the files. So let's run that chown command again, but we're gonna run it against that directory so I can see you guys, so I can show you guys that flag, that dash capital R flag. So sudo chown, and then we want to change it to root, change that directory to root, and let's change the group to root as well. And I want to use that dash capital R flag, and then let's type in the project folder, and if we press enter on that, and then let's ls again, -la, press enter. As you can see, that folder and all of the contents within that folder are now owned by root. So let me show you guys the stuff that's underneath it as well, so you guys can see that it's owned by roots. As you can see, this is like a Python project I was working on a while back, but now it's on, all of those files underneath are owned by root. So now let me go down and revert that back right fast and get into the permissions. So we type sudo chown Josh, and then colon Josh, and then we want to do the dash capital R flag and specify that directory and press enter, and we should be good to go. So if we go ls-la, and as you can see, it's owned by Josh, and I trust that it went through and did the permissions on everything beneath it because I put that dash or flag in there. So good to go. Now let's clear this again, and let's go down and show you guys the chmod. So let's ls this directory one more time, so we'll have it at the top so you guys can see what the permissions are now. And let's break it out for you right fast. Each one of these characters has a value to it, and I just want to kind of break it out for you. And the first thing I want to review is just showing you guys that these are broken out in sections, just so you guys can remember. So this is the user section, this is the group section, and this is the world section or other section. And each one of these characters within here is represented by a number. And just to explain what each one of these characters are, the R is reads, the W is write, the X is execute. So each one of these sections will have one of those characters within it. And each one of those characters represent a certain thing. So R actually equals 4, and the W actually equals 2, and the X for execute actually equals 1. So if we think about that, if you add up the numbers, all of those permissions combined equals 7. And you can change the permissions based on what you need. So if you only need read, then you would put 4. If you need read and execute, then you would put 5, because execute equals 1, 4 equals read. So if you add both of those numbers up, it's 5. So you can set the permissions for each one of these groups by just using a specific number. And let me go on and show you guys how to actually do this. So let's use the command first. So chmod, and then let's specify let's specify the first section, which is the user section. So, and let's say we want to give this folder read and execute permissions for the actual owner of the folder. So in order to accomplish that, read equals 4, when execute equals 1, so that's 5. So if we type 5, that's our first section. And we have to specify each one of these sections, but there are some options where you don't. You can just specify certain permissions to each one of them, but I'll get into that later. But the next section is the group. So let's say we want to give the group the same permissions, so we could just use 5. So let's go 5. I know I'm doing a kind of a weird example, but it's fine. 5, 5, and let's say we only want to give the other, only want to give them read permission. So we already know what that is. That's 4. So if we type 4, and then we want to specify that folder, so, and press enter, and that'll change the permissions for it. And if we ls that directory again and press enter, and just looking at what we did read and execute, right? So if we look down here, you'll see read and execute for the group, and then read for the world. So let's go down and revert that back right fast, and let's just do chmod. And for the user, if you look at what it was previously, it was read, write, and execute for the actual owner of the file or folder. So if we add up each one of those numbers, which is 4, 2, and 1, that equals 7. So in order to give, the owner read, write, and execute, we have to put 7. And then the group is 5 and world is 5. So if we type 5, 5, and that's because it's read and execute. So that's 5. And then let's go back and select that folder again and press enter. Cool. And if we ls, it should be back to what it was before. Yep, and it is. So I hope you guys are understanding this. But with this command, you can do the exact same thing with the -R. And I just wanted to, kind of show you guys that as well. You can change the permissions, and it'll change the permissions of all the files and folders underneath it. So we do that same command again, which was the 554. And let's add the -R, and we press enter on it. This will change everything within that folder. So let's run the ls command again, and we want to run it on that folder right fast. Everything, and I just want to list out everything that's in there. As you can see, the user has read and execute, the group has read and execute, and then the world has read. And that's the way it's, it'll recursively go down to each file within the directory, as well as if it was other folders within there, it'll do the exact same thing. So let me go down and change that back right fast. And let me just go back here and just run that command one more time so you guys can actually see it work. R and press enter. And that will change all those permissions back to what they were before. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you got something out of it. I try to keep this video as simple as possible for people that are just trying to get into Linux and just now opening up that command line and trying to figure out what to do when they see that flashing little blinker on the terminal shell. Please leave comments down in the comment box. I enjoy reading you guys' comments and your feedback, as well as answering questions if needed. So again, thanks guys for checking out the video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. And of course, keep it techie.